He promised to make us rich, then vanished with every penny. Now I'm exposing my husband's startup con and taking back our future. I never thought I'd be counting pennies while my husband lounged in a beachfront villa, at least not at 38 years old. But when he pitched the once-in-a-lifetime startup opportunity, I believed him. I signed over our life savings, $150,000 we'd scraped together for a house down payment, and watched as he wired it to an angel investor in Silicon Valley. 2 months later, the startup's website was gone. The email address bounced. Calls to his venture partner went straight to voicemail. And my husband, Daniel, retreated into silence. The day I discovered his betrayal, I sat at our kitchen table surrounded by unpaid bills, overdue notices, and that sinking realization: we were broke. My wedding ring felt heavy on my finger, a tarnished promise of security now lost to blind faith. NASA's. I stared at the blank screen of my laptop. No leads on the startup. No team page. No press releases. Nothing but a WHOIS record listing a proxy service in Panama. Daniel stood by the window, eyes downcast. Tell me this was real. He ran a hand through his hair. I thought it was. The founder seemed legit. Marta said yes. My pulse quickened. Marta? Daniel sighed. Marta Reyes. Angel investor. She's reputable. I checked. Then why is she unreachable? He shook his head. I'm calling every day. I closed my eyes. Our savings gone. How could you do this? He flinched as if struck. I believed in it. For us. I thought it would secure our future. My breath caught. Now we have nothing. That evening I lay in the bedroom we dreamed would one day hold our children's cribs. Instead, the closet door sagged with worn work clothes. I slipped out of bed and crept downstairs to the couch, flicking on my phone. Evening. I needed a plan. Browsing forums, I discovered I was not alone. Dozens of stories of Marta Reyes and Sunrise Labs gone dark. A few victims formed a loose chat group. I messaged them. Count me in. I lost everything. Let's find Marta and Sunrise Labs. I received a flurry of replies. Half-hearted leads. Dead-end IP addresses. Rumors of a Caribbean shell company. But one message stood out. I have a contact in Panama who can get corporate registry info for Sunrise Labs. $500. I stared at the screen. I had no $500. But I had pride, and a vow not to let my husband's con destroy our future. The next morning, I met a former victim, Sarah, at a downtown cafe. She pushed a folder across the table containing screenshots of wire confirmations and a single document. A Panamanian incorporation certificate for Sunrise Labs S.A., dated 3 weeks before Daniel wired our funds. Sarah, they used a nominee director, name's Rafael Gomez. No address but a P.O. box. Panama's registry is digital. Let's get the actual corporate file. Sarah nodded. My contact, Julio, will meet you tonight at the Panamanian consulate. But bring cash. I swallowed. $500 for hope. I emptied my emergency fund. A few hundred saved for a dentist appointment and car repairs. I swallowed my hesitation and texted Julio. Meet at Panamanian consulate at 7 p.m. with $500. Facing my husband. That afternoon, Daniel asked about dinner. I stirred sauce in a pot, trying to keep my voice calm. Daniel, you've been distant. I have work, applications, interviews. He smiled weakly. I'll support you. My heart twisted. Support means paying rent. He paled. I'm trying. I'm not asking you to try. I'm asking you to fix this. He dropped his gaze. I don't know how. I nodded, forcing composure. Then get out of my way. At 6:45 p.m., I nervously approached the consulate's side entrance. Julio, a wiry man with wire-rimmed glasses, beckoned me inside. He closed the door. Julio, whispering, You have the cash? I slid a wadded envelope across the desk. He peeled back a corner to confirm, then pulled a folder from under the desk. Inside, Sunrise Labs full registry, directors, shareholders, articles of incorporation. Julio, see here. Rafael Gomez is nominee director, beneficial owner, 1MR, likely Marta Reyes. Address, Suite 504, Oceanic Tower, Panama City. I exhaled. Thank you. He shook his head. Hunt is not over. I can refer you to a private investigator there for $2,000. My stomach churned. More money I didn't have. I tucked the folder into my bag. Thank you, Julio. This is enough for now. A new resolve. Walking home, I held the registry like a torch. I would drag Marta Reyes and her Puerto Rican nominee into the light. I would reclaim our savings, expose this con man and the woman behind it, and rebuild our future from the ashes. At the door, Daniel waited, nervous. Daniel, where have you been? Me, I found Sunrise Labs registry. I know where they hide. He looked at the folder. Can we do anything? I placed a hand on his arm. We will, but this is my fight now. He nodded, eyes glistening. I'm sorry, me. I love you, but you broke my trust. That night, I lay awake again, this time fueled not by despair, but by determination. The road ahead would be long and costly, but I had one thing they didn't, the courage to steal back our future. Update 1. The next morning I juggled job applications and childcare while steeling myself for the next move. By mid-afternoon, I had wired $2,000 to Julio's recommended private investigator in Panama, Camilo Vargas, a former maritime prosecutor turned PI. I booked a last-minute flight, determined to follow the money trail in person. Landing in Panama City, I was struck by the humid air and the sleek skyline rising from the lagoon. Camilo met me at Tocumen Airport, dark glasses reflecting the sunlight. Camilo, Ms. Reynolds? Good to meet you. I've prepared our itinerary. He handed me a folder, background on Rafael Gomez, maps of Oceanic Tower, and potential surveillance points. Camilo, we'll stake out Suite 504, your suspect's address. Then we'll visit local banks for witness interviews. I nodded, heart pounding. Let's do it. That afternoon, Camilo and I set up in a nondescript rental car, parked across the street from Oceanic Tower. I peered through binoculars as well-dressed locals and tourists mingled in the lobby below. Camilo, lo, Rafael Gomez lives on the 15th floor, but Sunrise Labs used Suite 504 on the 5th. Me, how do we confirm he's there? Camilo pointed. When he arrives, he'll pass this entrance. He slid a photo across, a suited man with a Panamanian ID badge reading R. Gomez. We waited 3 hours. Then a man matching the photo emerged, phone pressed to his ear. Camilo took pictures. As Gomez hailed a taxi, Camilo intercepted a security guard heading into the tower. Camilo, excuse me, officer, small question. Who manages Suite 504? The guard hesitated, eyes flicking to my American accent. It's under a corporate lease, Sunrise Labs S.A. They handle it directly. Me, could I see the lease agreement? Or at least the management log? The guard shook his head. Sensitive corporate info. Camilo, perhaps the building manager? We could check tomorrow. He left with a curt nod. Camilo and I retreated, data in hand. We now had confirmation. Gomez, and by extension Sunrise Labs, occupied an office suite in Panama City. The next day, Camilo arranged meetings with 2 local banks where Sunrise wired funds. At Banco Nacional de Panama, I met Marisol Gutierrez, a compliance officer. Me, we know Sunrise Labs funneled $150,000 through this branch to offshore accounts. Can you confirm any wire recipients? She steepled her fingers. Our policy prevents me from naming private clients. However, I can confirm an outbound transfer of $150,000 on behalf of Sunrise Labs to a U.S. account ending in 9,423. Me, that's my account. That was our money. Her face softened. I'm sorry. We flagged the transfer as unusual, but corporate credentials were in order. If you have a court order, we can release more details. I exhaled. We will. At the second bank, Global Corp Panama, Camilo and I presented forged legal papers Camilo obtained through local contacts, sufficient to secure compliance under Panamanian law. They turned over internal memos showing Sunrise's transfer schedule, including the $2.3 million to my fiancé's account. With the Panama intel, I flew to Miami to follow the trail to Sunrise's alleged headquarters in Coral Gables, a small office complex where a plaque read, Sunrise Labs. Inside, dusty cubicles lay empty, computers powered off, no signs of life, another shell. Camilo and I tracked down the landlord, Mr. Hernandez, in his condo nearby. Me, you leased to Sunrise Labs. Who signed the lease? He thumbed through his files. Lease signed by Marta Reyes. Panamanian passport number 205***. Records seized by my accountant. Me, can we see her ID copy? He nodded. Here. I recognized the photo. A poised woman with dark hair and a confident smile. Exactly as MV would appear. Camilo. This is our investor. She fronts the scheme. Breaking Marta's veil. Back in New York, equipped with Camilo's detailed reports, surveillance photos of Gomez, bank compliance memos, and Hernandez's lease documents, we built our case. Camilo marshaled the evidence into a federal complaint against Marta Reyes, Sunrise Labs, and their nominees, seeking asset seizure and criminal referral. As I reviewed the filings, I realized how close I was to dismantling their con. They thought they could hide behind shell companies and offshore secrecy, but I had the real paper trail and the will to expose them. Late that night, an envelope slid under my door. A single sheet reading, "Stop digging, or your next flight to Miami will be your last. MR." My heart skipped. Marta Reyes knew I was onto her, but fear only fueled my resolve. I fired a text to Camilo. Me, they know, we press on. He replied, Camilo, we'll ramp up security. You are not alone. Update 2. Back in New York, armed with Camilo's Panamanian dossier, I met with our U.S. legal team at the Manhattan offices of Reynolds and Hartman. Camille, our white-collar litigator, laid out the complaint. Camille, we're filing suit in the Southern District of New York. Defendants, Marta Reyes, Sunrise Labs S.A., Rafael Gomez, and any related entities. Claims, wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy. Me, and emergency relief? Camille, yes. Motion for a temporary restraining order to freeze any U.S.-based assets and preserve evidence. That afternoon, we filed the verified complaint and TRO motion. The operative facts included $150,000 initial transfer to Sunrise Labs in Panama, $2.3 million wire through shell banks to Ms. Reynolds' account. Dossier evidence, Panama surveillance photos, bank compliance memos, lease documents identifying Marta Reyes. By the next morning, Judge Daniels had signed the TRO, freezing all known U.S. assets of the defendants and authorizing expedited discovery. Subpoenas served on Coral Gables' landlord, U.S. banks, and email providers for Mr. V at seacove.net. First hearing, explosive revelations. The TRO hearing convened within a week. In courtroom 12B, Camille presented our evidence. Camille, Your Honor, this is not a mere business dispute. The pattern is unmistakable. A series of shell companies and nominee directors orchestrating a multi-million-dollar fraud, leaving Ms. Reynolds penniless. We ask the court to maintain the freeze and compel immediate production of documents. Opposing counsel, retained by Marta Reyes, argued the investments were legitimate, that Ms. Reyes believed in Sunrise's technology, and that any transfers to Ms. Reynolds' account were gifts, not fraud. I took the stand. Heart racing, I recounted Daniel's blind trust, the evaporated website, and the chilling envelope threat. I held up Camilo's photos of Gomez leaving Oceanic Tower. The judge leaned forward. Ms. Reynolds, do you believe Ms. Reyes intended to defraud you? Me? Absolutely, Your Honor. The judge then inquired about Camille's TRO request. Camille emphasized the risk of asset flight and evidence destruction. Mako. Judge Daniels nodded. TRO is appropriate. Order maintained. The courtroom buzzed, our first U.S. victory. With the TRO in place, Camille's team served subpoenas that day. By week's end, we received bank records from 2 U.S. banks showing Marta Reyes' withdrawals of Sunrise Labs proceeds, email logs from a major provider revealing communications between Reyes and Gomez using the Mr. V at seacove.net address, Coral Gables lease receipts confirming Gomez as an alias, not a real property manager. In one stunning email chain, Reyes wrote to Gomez, "Move $150,000 to her account as per plan. She must believe it's legit, no direct contact." Camille turned to me, "This is our smoking gun. Public pressure." To leverage public pressure, we released a redacted press release detailing the lawsuit and TRO. omitting sensitive client data but describing the shell company network. The story exploded across finance blogs and local news, naming Sunrise Labs, Marta Reyes, and Rafael Gomez. Within 48 hours, tips poured in. A former Sunrise engineer in Bangalore claimed unpaid salaries. A Maltese consultant reported ghost-written white papers. Our case ballooned into a global fraud exposé. Late one evening, Daniel and I reviewed the pouring-in evidence. His face, once haunted with guilt, brightened as hope returned. Daniel, we're close. They can't hide. Me. We will get our money back. He hugged me and I realized this fight had transformed us, turning broken trust into shared resolve. Update 3. The momentum from the TRO hearing and rapid discovery gave us a surge of confidence. Next came the critical step, deposing Rafael Gomez in Florida and forcing Marta Reyes to testify in Panama under our Hague Convention requests. We flew to Miami, where Gregory and Bates, the Coral Gables law firm representing Gomez, had arranged a deposition room. I arrived alongside Camille, Daniel, and our Florida co-counsel Mr. Ortiz. Gomez entered wearing an expensive linen suit, sun-streaked hair, and that same cool expression. He sat, crossed one ankle over the other, and flipped through his prepared script. Camille. Mr. Gomez, state your full name for the record. Gomez. Rafael Alejandro Gomez, consultant. Camille. Are you the nominee director of Sunrise Labs S.A., created in Panama on April 2, 2022? Gomez. Correct. Camille. Were you ever a beneficial owner of Sunrise Labs? Gomez. No. Using our subpoenaed bank records, Camille walked him through the wires. Camille. Did you authorize the transfer of $150,000 from Ms. Reynolds' U.S. account to Sunrise's Panama account on June 15, 2022? Gomez shrugs. I was instructed to execute wire instructions. Camille. By whom? Gomez. By my employer. Camille. Who is your employer? He hesitated, glanced at his counsel, then back at us. Gomez. I'm not at liberty to say. Camille produced our Panama deposition of Julio's security guard, who'd identified Gomez by name, and said, Camille, Julio's guard confirmed you've been seen carrying corporate documents labeled Sunrise Labs S.A. and MR on them. Did you ever receive instructions directly from Ms. Reyes? Gomez coughed. Most instructions came via encrypted email. Camille. Email from Mr. V at seacove.net? His composure cracked. He nodded. Camille. So you knew that email belonged to Ms. Reyes? Gomez. I assumed so. His admission sealed it. Gomez was a paid front, executing Reyes's fraudulent scheme. Defense counsel objected, but the judge allowed it as impeachment evidence. Camille. No further questions. Gomez slumped as we concluded the deposition. I felt vindicated but knew the real test awaited with Reyes herself. Simultaneously, Camille coordinated with Gareth Hughes in London and Luc Moreau in Switzerland to serve Reyes with our formal deposition notice under the Hague Evidence Convention. They tracked her to a Panamanian law office in Panama City, where she practiced wealth management. On a steamy Wednesday morning, a process server handed Reyes the notice. Within days, she agreed, reluctantly, to testify in New York. Marta Reyes takes the stand. Back in Judge Daniels' courtroom, the stage was set for Reyes' testimony. With worldwide media watching, Camille led the examination. Camille. Ms. Reyes, state your full name and occupation. Reyes. Stiff. Marta Lucia Reyes, Managing Director, Sea Cove Holdings. Camille. Do you recognize this email address? She held up a laminated card. Mr. V at seacove.net. Reyes hesitates. It's my corporate alias. Camille. Did you use that alias to instruct Mr. Gomez to execute wire transfers from Ms. Reynolds' account? Reyes. I oversaw Seacove's operations. Camille. Oversaw? Did you personally review each wire? Her gaze flickered. Reyes. No, but I approved the framework. Camille. Did you know Sunrise Labs was a sham? Reyes. I believed in the technology. Camille. Even after the website disappeared and Sunrise ceased operations within 6 weeks? Reyes looked down. Camille. Isn't it true you knew Sunrise Labs was defunct when you transferred $2.3 million into Ms. Reynolds' account? After a long pause, she sighed. Reyes, I had suspicions, but Mr. Gomez assured me everything was on track. Camille, those assurances came from you. Did you ever question him? Reyes's composure unraveled. Reyes, in hindsight, yes, but I was bound by contract. Camille, a contract to perpetuate fraud? The courtroom gasped. Reyes's defense crumbled under her own admission of willful blindness. Restitution motion granted. Following Reyes's deposition, Camille moved for summary judgment on damages. She argued Ms. Reynolds suffered $2.45 million in losses, initial $150,000 plus the $2.3 million wire, plus interest and legal fees. Judge Daniels, reviewing the unambiguous evidence and Reyes's admissions, ruled swiftly. Judge Daniels, summary judgment is granted. Defendants are jointly and severally liable for restitution of $2.45 million, plus pre-judgment interest, costs, and attorney's fees. The gavel fell. Tears welled in my eyes as restitution orders were entered. Within 48 hours, U.S. banks released $2.45 million into Ms. Reynolds' trust account, fulfilling the restitution order. The funds cleared in my bank, restoring our life savings and more. Daniel, waiting outside the courthouse, hugged me. We did it. Me. We got our future back, a path forward. As we left the courthouse, reporters thrust microphones forward. I declared. Me. Today, justice prevailed. No con is too big when you follow the paper trail. Cameras flashed. I felt stronger than ever, no longer broke or betrayed, but empowered. Update 4. With the restitution ordered and our bank account replenished, Daniel and I took a long weekend away to clear our heads. But even as we walked beside the Hudson River, I felt the pull of unfinished business, countless families still victimized by Sunrise Labs and its offshore accomplices. I couldn't let the money simply sit idle. Back home, Camille and I sketched out a community recovery fund, using a portion of the recovered $2.45 million to support others scammed by the same network. We'd offer microgrants up to $5,000 to help victims pay rent, medical bills, or legal fees while their own cases advanced. Me. We found our way back. Let's light a path for others. Camille. A noble use of the money, and further pressure on the defendants to cooperate fully. Within days, Daniel transformed our living room into a makeshift office, drafting the fund's charter, while I reached out to fraud victim support groups. In a press conference with the district attorney, we announced the Sunrise Labs Community Recovery Fund, turning a multi-million-dollar fraud into hope for hundreds. Media outlets hailed it as a pioneering victim-driven initiative, a final legal hurdle. Just as momentum peaked, we faced one last obstacle. Marta Reyes filed a motion to stay enforcement of the restitution, claiming she needed, quote, time to liquidate assets without causing undue hardship to her other clients. Camille was incensed. She's trying to stall yet again. We prepared opposition papers, pointing out her forced resignation from Sea Cove Holdings, her lack of legitimate clients, and the urgency for victims like us. At the hearing, Camille argued, Camille, Your Honor, Ms. Reyes has no bona fide business to protect, only phantom operations. A stay would inflict irreparable harm on plaintiff victims and undermine the purpose of restitution. Reyes's counsel countered with sympathetic anecdotes of reputational harm and market volatility. But Judge Daniels, referencing Reyes's own deposition admissions, denied the stay. Judge Daniels, Ms. Reyes's request lacks merit. Restitution stands. No stay. With that, the path was clear. Funds could be dispersed at once. Over the next month, Daniel and I, with help from local nonprofits, vetted applications for the Community Recovery Fund. We awarded grants to Lily Chen, a single mother who lost her life savings after wiring $20,000 to Sunrise Labs, enabling her to cover rent arrears and childcare. Carlos Alvarez, whose freelance income dwindled when Sunrise Labs failed and left his consulting retainer unpaid, granting him a bridge loan to sustain his small design business. The Sunrise Alumni Network, a global group of unpaid contractors who used funds to build a shared legal defense fund. Each recipient's story was shared, anonymously unless they opted in, to highlight the ongoing human impact of corporate fraud. One evening, Lily sent a handwritten thank you note. Your courage returned not only my money but my dignity. I framed it on my desk next to the final court order. With the Community Recovery Fund established and the final legal hurdles cleared, I reached out to Daniel and my support circle for a symbolic closing ceremony. We gathered in our apartment, now cleaned of legal files and ghostly reminders. Daniel read aloud the last lines of our restored bank statement. Account balance, $2,450,000. Funds dispersed. Sunrise Labs Recovery Fund, $500,000. Victim restitution, $1,950,000. We toasted with sparkling water, gratitude mingling with relief. That night, Daniel and I sat on the balcony, city lights flickering. He took my hand. Daniel, I almost lost everything, but we found a way back. Me. We did it together. And now we lift others as we rise. Update 5. With restitution dispersed and the Community Recovery Fund in momentum, I felt the saga nearing its end. But Sunrise Labs and its enablers still lurked in legal shadows. Over the months, we pursued every shell, every nominee, every bank account. Now, only the final entities remained, offshore trusts in Luxembourg and Cyprus, held in the name of obscure corporate trusts set up by Sunrise's law firm. Our legal team, led by Camille and supported by Gareth Hughes, Luc Moreau, and Camilo Vargas, crafted a comprehensive cross-border enforcement action. We coordinated simultaneous court filings in New York, Luxembourg, Cyprus, and Panama under mutual legal assistance treaties. The message was clear: no refuge for fraudsters. On a crisp autumn morning, Camille and Gareth filed motions in Luxembourg District Court, citing Judge Daniel's New York restitution order and Luxembourg's incorporation of one key shell, Aurora Tech Investments SARL. They requested asset freezes and document production. Simultaneously, Luck filed in the Cyprus courts against Mediterraneo Holdings Limited, another shell funneling Sunrise proceeds into real estate investments in Larnaca. Within weeks, both jurisdictions complied. Luxembourg authorities froze €1.2 million in bank accounts and demanded Aurora Tech's directors produce beneficial ownership records. Cyprus courts halted property transfers and ordered Mediterraneo Holdings to surrender transaction logs. These international rulings sealed off the last safe harbors for Sunrise's stolen funds, the private law firm's accountability. Our investigations revealed that a prestigious offshore law firm, Baker & Hume Panama, had drafted Sunrise Labs Incorporation and nominee documents. While many offshore experts operate ethically, Baker & Hume had facilitated Sunrise's fraud with willful blindness. Camilo tracked down former employees who provided sworn statements, internal emails showing they knew Marta Reyes and Rafael Gomez lacked real businesses, yet the firm continued setting up shell companies. Camilo delivered these statements in person to our Panama process server, and Camille included them in a malpractice and conspiracy suit against Baker & Hume, seeking damages and sanctions. The mere threat of exposure prompted Baker & Hume to settle. Settlement terms: payment of $500,000 into the Sunrise Labs Recovery Fund. Agreement to cease nominee director services for Sunrise affiliates. Cooperation in disclosing all Sunrise-related client files to our counsel. This settlement not only recovered additional funds but also dismantled the firm's enabler role, reinforcing offshore accountability. The final defendant, Marta Reyes. While Gomez's deposition and Baker & Hume's settlement narrowed our focus, Marta Reyes remained the linchpin. Although summary judgment had returned her own funds, she faced contempt proceedings in New York for ignoring document subpoenas related to Luxembourg and Cyprus shells. At a grim hearing, Reyes appeared in the dock via video link from her London apartment. She wore a judicially mandated ankle monitor, an unusual sight for the high society investor. Judge Daniels: Ms. Reyes, you failed to comply with court-ordered document production. Explain. Reyes, voice trembling: I thought those entities were beyond this court's reach. Judge Daniels: This court's orders extend internationally under the Hague Convention and Mutual Assistance Treaties. Noncompliance is contempt. The judge imposed sanctions: a $250,000 fine, immediately payable into the recovery fund, and a 30-day jail sentence suspended upon full compliance. The ankle monitor ensured Reyes's movements were tracked until she delivered the remaining files, shutting down the fraud network. With documents flowing in from multiple jurisdictions, Luxembourg, Cyprus, Panama, and New York, our forensic team, led by Marco and Ravi Chandrasekhar, charted every remaining asset. They identified a Malta-registered yacht in Valletta Harbor sold under court order, a Swedish property portfolio transferred to the U.S. Recovery Fund in lieu of cash disbursement, a secret Seychelles-based crypto exchange holding Sunrise tokens, now frozen and converted to USD. Each seized asset funneled millions more back into restitution and the Sunrise Labs Community Recovery Fund, bringing total recovery to over $4.7 million, more than double our initial losses. Our efforts rippled beyond personal justice. The multi-jurisdictional saga drew attention from international regulators. Panamanian Congress introduced tighter nominee director regulations, requiring transparent beneficial ownership registries. EU Financial Action Task Force hailed the Luxembourg and Cyprus cooperation as a model for cross-border asset recovery. FinCEN in the United States upgraded reporting requirements for domestic banks handling high-risk offshore clients. Our foundation, in partnership with these bodies and nonprofits, conducted training workshops for lawyers and compliance officers worldwide, transforming our painful ordeal into a catalyst for systemic reform against financial fraud. Personal closure. Back in New York, a final court hearing in Judge Daniels' chamber sealed the case. Judge Daniels, with restitution orders fully satisfied and contempt sanctions imposed, this court marks Sunrise Labs S.A. and associated defendants as permanently restrained. The clerk will close the matter. As the gavel fell, Camille, Daniel, and I embraced. Victory mingled with exhaustion. The years of relentless pursuit, the flights, the courtroom battles, the nights of fear, all converged into this moment of closure. In the weeks that followed, Daniel and I reclaimed normalcy. We re-renovated our apartment, replacing the faded couch, splurging on fresh paint, and finally hanging our wedding photo back on the wall. We established secure savings, diversified investments, and set up ironclad legal safeguards for any future ventures. We also formalized the Sunrise Labs Legacy Program under our foundation, dedicating annual reports to the families still fighting smaller scams, ensuring no one else had to wage such a lonely battle. In the end, the con that nearly cost a family its future became the spark that ignited justice, healing, and enduring legacy, proof that even in our darkest moments, courage and unity can reclaim hope.